Think about principal meetings. We think kind of dry. Let me be honest with you. Sometimes I go in schools and see our principals having these meetings and they're yawning during their own meeting, really thinking about why you're having your meeting, why is it important to staff and faculty, and why you want to do it. Being able to understand that this is going to be your principal's guide to understanding your meeting. We know that 25% of the time are in meetings, with 40% of the time in conversations. We also know that 70% of the meetings are considered unproductive. So think of, what are you having your meeting for? How do you make it that much more engaging? And do you have to always be the one at the center of all your meetings? I always tell the principals that I work with, it's okay to rethink our meeting structure. Being able to understand and see, is this meeting necessary? Of course, on Facebook and all the social media platforms, the email that went around that says this could have been an email as opposed to actual meeting. So really being able to have your shared thought through your community, whether you're their AP, the principals, to talk about your meetings and, do I need to have one? Another thing is, think about the frequency of your meetings. How many meetings do you have? And are all of the meetings necessary? And think of, what is the amount of time that you have, and how do you chunk your time to be able to kind of narrow your topics on these meetings? And last but not least, thinking about diversifying your meeting format. It doesn't have to always be the same, and you don't have to always be leading it. So really thinking about, maybe you have a meeting walk, your breakout session, or my favorite, the 15-minute standing meeting. Thinking about how you can change things up for your staff. So being able to respect your time boundary is crucial, right? Thinking of starting the meeting and ending it on time every time. There's nothing worse than the teachers are packing up and the principal's not finished. They have more things to cover. So instead of cutting it off, they keep going on and it's past the time. So really being able to respect time of your teachers and your staff, as well as prevent productivity drops, right? Thinking of your late starts, reduce effectiveness, thinking about how do we email proactively to say, hey, this is going on, or don't forget about this. Be very proactive as opposed to reactive. And then lead by example. Just honor the time commitments that you have, and if you cannot show up, at what point do you kind of email people and let them know, I'm not going to be able to make it? And then respectfully, how are they showing? Because you are the leader, and whatever you portray or whatever you project, that is what happens to your school culture. I remember working with the principal the other day, and one of the things they were like, yeah, there's a meeting, but nobody knows what the meeting is for or why, what the agenda is or the objective, because it wasn't emailed out. So how can really teachers prepare for what they are walking into? That causes anxiety. It's like being called up to the office and you don't know why. So really thinking about, how are your agendas very clear? What are you doing to create a detailed agenda? How do you distribute the agendas before the meeting? And what are you doing to prioritize face-to-face discussion and really focus on that and require together in a collaboration together? And thinking about sending materials in advance or within 24 hours, right? So teachers can kind of know, they can digest, and they can come prepared with what they can do to contribute to the meeting and reflect on the meeting before they even step across the threshold. This is a big deal. There's no longer sit and get. What are you doing to promote active participation, right? How are you encouraging input? Like telling people you are a part of the team. How do you increase ownership to make sure that everybody knows that they can stand up, they can speak out without being ridiculed? What are you doing to use techniques, whether you're doing a Mentimeter or whether you're doing Kahoot, whatever you're doing to try to keep people engaged in the meeting. And then innovation. It doesn't hurt to try things new and solve new ideas in different ways. I remember one of the ideas was, hey, maybe we should find out, is this a problem before we actually dive into it and brainstorm about it? That is okay. That time, whenever you're face-to-face, could be a great time to brainstorm problems and solutions that we have at the school. And then what are we doing to make staff feel valued, right? Thinking of, what are the diverse perspectives in the room, and has everybody showed up? And are they contributing? If not, what can you do differently in your means to make sure that happens? How are you facilitating your groups effectively? What are you doing to be a steward of your time? Really thinking of how you're protecting people and valuing their time. How are you managing the group dynamics? Do people feel safe, even in the same grade level? Do they feel safe to share out with their voices? How are you keeping on track with your discussions? What do you do to gently redirect the discussion? Do you have a timekeeper? What happens when people get off task, or when you get off task? Is it okay for somebody to call you out to tell you, hey, you're off task and you're off topic? Really thinking about, what are some effective strategies that I can use to balance and keep things on track. Norms are crucial. Sometimes we establish norms, but then we kind of establish it at the beginning and we don't continue them. Thinking about what are our respectful dialogue that we can have, the conversation, how can we make sure we're actively listening and we're not reading something or reading our notes while somebody's talking. Teachers know that it's a safe space where they can collaborate and talk and share true concerns without being vilified. And then, of course, you have welcomed all viewpoints. I've seen in many schools, some of the principals can be a little bias towards some of the teachers, right? We all have our favorite students, we all have our favorite teachers, but being able to treat people fairly is crucial, and being able to show that. Try to incorporate team building activities often, right? We want to make sure we strengthen our connections, we have meaningful relationships with all of our teachers. What are some quick activities that you can do at the start to get things started and get conversation flowing? And then what are we doing, because we're all there, so what are we doing to problem solve our current issues at the school? Now, meetings are only as good as their follow ups. Thinking of what happens after the meeting. Who's documenting, right? How are we going to summarize our key points with our meetings? How are we going to assign who does what and when? What does the timeline look like? Before we leave the meeting, all these things need to be in place, and being able to recognize our progress over time. Many times at our schools, I see kind of the ball drops on really establishing our timeline and looking at our progress to see if we make gains. All right, last slide. This is the do. You need to go and try something. When we're talking about transforming our culture, thinking about our time, our meetings productive, and then being able to block out time for personal conversations to reinforce some of the things that we've talked about are crucial, because it builds culture. And we want to make sure that we are a reflection of our culture. So if you want to learn more about this, definitely DM me, connect, get on my calendar, and I can definitely tell you a lot more about effective school meetings. Talk to you later. Bye.